Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon, symposiasts and guests. We're starting a few minutes late because we understand that people have to eat, and an hour and 10 minutes is actually pretty brisk for eating. So to kill time and warm up the crowd, I will tell a joke. On this podium, you see 5 glasses of water, or rather 5 glasses, 4 contain water. The 5th is empty. Which 18th century political figure does this remind you of?
What?
1 glass empty, 4 full. Well, it's Philip the Fifth. Who is a figure of not inconsiderable importance in the world that Vasi and his contemporaries inhabited, as King of Spain and father of Vasi's great patron, Charles of Bourbon. With that, do I have permission now to start the afternoon session? Once again, I am James Harper. You all met me this morning, if not other times. And I want to introduce our first speaker this afternoon, Heather Hyde Minor. Heather is one of the clearest voices in Settecento studies today, and has been making a mark in the last decade with her rich and nuanced treatments of architectural patronage, antiquarianism, and cartography. A professor of architectural history at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, she received her PhD from the Department of Art and Archaeology at Princeton University in 1992. When I first taught a Vasi seminar in 2007, getting ideas geared up for this exhibition project, her article in the Burlington Magazine was one of the very few scholarly things written about Vasi in English, which is something we do have to consider for our undergraduates. And among other publications since then, I should mention The Serpent and the Stylus, a book of essays on Piranesi that she edited in 2006 with Mario Bevilacqua, as well as Fabio Berri. And her new book, The Culture of Architecture in Enlightenment Rome, which I brandish like Moses coming down from the mountain, published with Penn State Press just this year. Today, Heather will speak to us about Piranesi's lost cities. So please welcome her.
Thank you so much, Jamie and Jim, for organizing this symposium, for putting together this absolutely marvelous show, and for bringing us all together here in Eugene for this wonderful conference. I'm not going to be talking about Vasi today at all, but instead his kind of arch rival or frenemy, Giovanni Battista Piranesi. So I'm going to get started. Am I loud enough? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You can hear me in the back, great, okay. Piranesi's great map of Rome, the Iconographia Campi Marti Antiquae Urbis, presents us with a reconstruction of the Campus Martius as it looked in the late Empire. Called the greatest antiquarian topographical fantasy ever made, this image has fascinated architects, scholars of ancient and modern Rome, and collectors since it was printed in 1762. Modern interpreters of the plan have suggested an array of meanings, often focusing on the formal characteristics of the map. John Wilt Neely described it as, quote, bewildering, and saw it as a statement of Piranesi's artistic credo and a call to arms for his contemporary architects. Others, from the theorist and historian Manfredo Tafori to the architect Peter Eisenman, have examined it seeking to learn what it can tell us about current urban design. In this talk, I will examine the visual forms of the map, focusing on the precise nature of the scholarly and artistic practices that were used to create it. My starting point today is the ontological status of the map itself. The Campus Martius plan is not a solitary cell, but instead part of the body of a bound volume. And you see it here on the lower part of the screen, folded up as it nestles within the binding of the book that it was part of. Piranesi inserted the map in a book titled Campus Martius Antiquae Orbis, or Il Campo Marzio dell'Antica Roma. It has two titles, one in Latin and one in Italian, The Field of Mars in Ancient Rome. A title page, frontispiece, 48 numbered plates, a series of decorative letters, and two colophons are contained within its cover. The text of the book comprises a 3-page dedication to Robert Adam, which is followed by a 67-page essay. The iconographium appears just after this essay and is in turn trailed by 3 other maps and a fold-out view of the Campus Martius. The relationship between the text of the book and the map is illuminating in a number of respects. In tracing the layout of the ancient city, Piranesi gathered heaps of evidence. Data gleaned from his experiences surveying, making maps, reading classical texts, and examining ancient objects all had a part in this process. In combining these diverse forms of evidence, Piranesi drew upon and developed the same forms of scholarship that were being practiced by his contemporaries. Exactly how Piranesi used this evidence will be the focus of my talk today. The Iconographia consists of 6 printed sheets that comprise a map that is approximately 53 inches tall and 46 inches wide. The plan represents the Campus Martius, the low-lying floodplain between the Tiber River and 3 of Rome's hills that is the center of the city today. The map is made to appear as if it were not engraved on paper at all, but on stone, which casts a shadow, and you can see that all along, especially well down here at the bottom, reminding us of its weight and bulk. Sturdy metal clamps hold the stone map in place, perhaps gripping it to a wall, and you can see those clamps all around the edges of the map. Examination of the upper right-hand corner of the map reveals that this tablet is composed of 2 sections, one very small and one enormous here, revealing the fragmentary and ruined nature of this image. The upper left-hand corner is ornamented with 4 additional fragments, and you see those stacked up here. One proclaims the dedication of the work to the Scottish architect Robert Adam, who visited Rome from 1755 to 1757 and befriended Piranesi. Piranesi makes an appearance alongside his friend in a fictive medallion. 3 fragments are stacked on top of one another at the corner of the dedicatory inscription. Carved into the stone tablet at the top of the pile is an aerial view of the Campus Martius. You see that one right here. The image describes Rome's 7 hills, the path of the Tiber River, and a number of streets. Unlike the map it rests upon, the small view offers a scale in Roman palmi, so Roman palms, the standard form of measurement used in the 18th century in the city. This panorama of the Campus Martius perches atop a corroded stone compass rose that sets out the 4 cardinal directions to be used to read the great map upon which it rests. The urban site Piranesi describes in this image would have been immediately familiar to an educated viewer in the 1700s. In ancient Rome, the Campus Martius sat outside the pomerium, or sacred boundary of the city. This low-lying plain was the area where military exercises took place, and soldiers returning from combat exchanged their armor for togas before re-entering the city. Monuments that are well known and still visible today, such as the great tombs of Hadrian and Augustus, appear on Piranesi's plan. And so here is the mausoleum of Augustus here and here, the mausoleum of Hadrian here and here. But any of the men who imbibed antiquity as Piranesi did would have found his map immediately strange and odd. First, Piranesi's format was unusual. Unlike other antiquarians or map makers in the 1700s, he relied solely on planimetric cartography to reconstruct the city, rather than fusing that technique with the imaging technologies used to create vedute views or aerial views. Iconographic projection alone is not commonly used in antiquarian publications. Reconstruction, one of the key preoccupations of the 18th century men who studied the lost worlds of the ancient past, was difficult to express in a map that took this form. Second, the extent of Piranesi's campus was enormous. This space in the city was typically understood in the 1700s to occupy the area contained by the Tiber to the west, the foot of the Pincian and Quirinal hills to the northeast, and the Capitoline to the south. So the Capitoline is down here, here's the Tiber River, looping along here, the Pincian and the Quirinal hills over here. Piranesi's campus spills over these boundaries, crossing the Tiber and moving beyond St. Peter's, pushing northward to the Milvian Bridge, roughly doubling the area of the campus in the process. How did Piranesi create this map? In tracing the layout of ancient Rome, he gathered heaps of evidence. Data gleaned from his experiences making maps, examining ancient objects and ruined buildings were all used to reconstruct the lost city. Classical texts had a particularly important role in helping Piranesi to depict the invisible world under the modern city. Piranesi's experience with the new practical science of surveying provided key material to use in his map. In 1743, Piranesi went to work for Giovanni Battista Noli. Beginning in 1736, Noli created a precise engraved plan of the modern city of Rome. Accompanied by a band of assistants outfitted with measuring tools like chains and portable drawing tables, Noli set out to survey every square inch of the city. The resulting map, more than 6 feet tall and 7 feet wide, precisely represents every street, church, fountain, piazza, and apartment building. This unrivaled technical feat represented not only a triumph of the enlightened science of cartography, but a new way of imagining and imaging the city. Piranesi's task, along with Noli's son Carlo, was to engrave a smaller version of the plan of modern Rome. Their names appear on the overturned cornice in the foreground, the underside of which is used to provide the scale for the map. This map makes clear that Piranesi was intimately familiar not only with Noli's map, but with this sort of precise mathematical way of knowing and visualizing the city. Piranesi does not quote evidence from Noli literally. The imaging systems of the two maps differ. Piranesi's plan of the Campus Martius relies on ethnographic projection, which Noli combined with bird's eye views in his map. And you can see that here in this detail of the area around the Cathedral of Rome, San Giovanni in Laterano, where you can see Noli combines ethnographic projection with other kinds of imaging techniques. Piranesi also disputes at least one of Noli's findings. Plate 16 of the Campus Martius book includes a small image Piranesi labels as a map of the remains in the area near the theater of Pompey. The upper left-hand corner, so this part here, which I've blown up for you, shows a small map of the theater. Piranesi reproduces Noli's rendering of the site, which you see at the top, but he corrects the position of the theater, rotating it by about 90 degrees. He shows Noli's erroneous placement of the structure in lighter ink, demarking it with a number 1 and a number 3. So this little stretch here. Piranesi correctly positions the theater, depicting it in darker ink, which you see running here. He also places the cardinal points on the image, running a hashed line over the site so that the viewer can see the extent of the shift. But Piranesi did not just use his own map to quibble over Noli's placement of particular monuments in the city.